The flight was peaceful. Everyone was calm. Some people were reading books. Others were listening to music or enjoying their meals in first class. The air was quiet until two airline security officers suddenly entered. They didn't look around. They walked straight to one woman. She was black, well-dressed, and sitting quietly in her seat. She had soft curls in her hair, a simple handbag on her lap, and a calm expression on her face. She had not spoken to anyone. She hadn't caused any trouble. But the officers didn't care. "Ma'am," one of them said, "come with us." The woman looked up, confused. "I'm sorry. What's the problem?" "You're making other passengers uncomfortable," the officer said coldly. Her heart skipped a beat. She looked around. No one had said anything to her. No one had asked her to move. But now, everyone was staring. Some with confusion, some with judgment. A few even looked away, pretending not to see what was happening. "Uncomfortable?" she asked again, trying to stay calm. "I'm just sitting here. I have a ticket. Please stand up," the second officer said, his voice louder now. "We don't want any problems." She could feel all eyes on her. Whispers started. "Maybe she sneaked in here," one man said quietly to his wife. "She doesn't look rich," someone else mumbled. Her face turned red, not from guilt, but from humiliation. She slowly opened her purse and took out her first-class boarding pass. "Here, I have the right seat," she said softly, holding out the ticket. The officer didn't even look at it. "This isn't about the ticket, ma'am," he said. "We need you to come with us." Now, she sighed. Deep inside, a storm was rising. But on the outside, she stayed calm. She stood up slowly, holding her handbag tightly. As she walked past the other passengers, she could feel their eyes burning through her. Some looked at her like she was a criminal. Some looked at her with pity. No one spoke up for her. No one said, "Wait, this isn't right." They walked her to the back of the plane. Past business class. Past economy. Past the people who didn't care what was happening. They made her sit in the last row, near the bathrooms. She sat down, her hands shaking. For a moment, she felt like she was back in her childhood, back when people said she would never be successful, never be anything, just because of how she looked. But they were wrong back then. And they were wrong now. She opened her handbag again. This time, not for her ticket. She pulled out her phone. Her fingers moved slowly, but her eyes were sharp. She dialed one number. Just one. The phone rang once. Then a voice answered. "Ma'am," the voice said with respect. "Activated," she said quietly. "Planned skyfall." Then she hung up. No one saw the small smile that appeared on her face. Meanwhile, up in first class, a man in a business suit had been watching everything. He looked nervous now. He checked his phone. No messages yet, but something told him this was no ordinary woman. Back in the last row, the woman looked out the window. The clouds floated gently by. The world looked peaceful, but a storm was coming. A storm that started with one woman, one seat, and one call. Because what the officers didn't know, the woman they just humiliated was the CEO of one of the largest tech companies in the world. And her company, it had just bought a large share in the airline. She didn't need to shout. She didn't need to fight. She just needed that one call. And now, everything was about to change. The plane was quiet again, but not really. The silence was heavy, like something big was about to happen. Passengers had returned to their books, their screens, and their drinks, but their eyes kept glancing back to the last row, back to the woman with soft curls and silent power in her posture. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She just sat there, calm, but dangerous. In row 7, a man looked nervous. His name was Daniel Brooks, a mid-level manager at a marketing company. He was on his way to a big business meeting in New York. He had been on his laptop when the scene happened, when the security officers took the woman from first class. At first, he thought she was just another passenger causing trouble. But now, he wasn't so sure. He zoomed in on a photo of a business article saved on his phone, a profile from Forbes. A powerful woman stared back from the cover. Black, brilliant, beautiful. Alicia Moore, the face of the future. Daniel's heart skipped a beat. He looked again toward the back of the plane. The same strong cheekbones, the same calm eyes, the same hairstyle. "No way," he whispered. His wife, sitting next to him, looked up. "What happened?" Daniel turned his phone toward her. I think that's Alicia Moore, the CEO of Skycore Technologies." His wife's eyes widened. "Wait, the Alicia Moore?" Daniel nodded slowly. "Yes, I saw her speak at a tech conference last year. She's worth billions. She's on Time magazine's list of most powerful women. But they made her sit in the back," his wife said quietly, "like she was nothing." Daniel swallowed hard. "They have no idea who she is." Up front, the security officers were laughing now, joking with the flight attendants. "Some people think money lets them do whatever they want," one of them said. "She looked like she was about to cry." The other chuckled. "Probably just embarrassed she got caught." They had no idea what was coming. Meanwhile, Alicia sat still. Her phone buzzed softly in her lap. One message appeared, just 3 words. "It has started." She smiled. That one call she made. It had triggered a private alert system, planned Skyfall. A protocol created years ago for moments just like this. The system would track the incident, alert key people, and monitor everything happening on the flight. Social media teams were watching. Legal advisors were preparing. Press contacts were waiting. Alicia didn't need to scream. She had built an empire, and her empire was moving silently, powerfully, in the background. In the cockpit, the pilot's phone buzzed. He checked the screen. His face went pale. He stepped out quickly and walked to the lead flight attendant. "Where's the passenger who was removed from first class?" he asked. "She's in the back," the flight attendant said. "Security moved her. There was a complaint. Bring her back. Now." "Sir." "I said now." The flight attendant hesitated. "What happened?" The pilot looked her straight in the eye. "She's Alicia Moore." The flight attendant gasped. The officers overheard and froze. Back in row 7, Daniel turned on airplane Wi-Fi and typed out a tweet. "Just witnessed Alicia Moore, yes, the CEO, being forced out of first class by flight security. No reason given. Shocked." He hit post. In seconds, it started getting attention. In minutes, it was spreading fast. Alicia looked down the aisle as the flight attendant approached her, nervous. "Ms. Moore," she said softly, "I'm so sorry. The captain would like to return you to your seat." Alicia stood up slowly. Everyone watched again. But this time, the energy was different. The whispers had changed. "That's her. That's really her. I saw her TV talk. She's brilliant. She owns this airline, right?" Alicia walked down the aisle with her head held high. But she wasn't angry. She wasn't bitter. She looked calm, confident. As she passed the 2 officers, she stopped. She looked at the man who had dragged her from first class. "You asked me earlier if I was making people uncomfortable," she said softly. He didn't respond. She leaned in just a little closer. "You're the one who should feel uncomfortable now." Then she walked away. She sat back in her original seat, placed her handbag beside her, and closed her eyes. She didn't say another word for the rest of the flight. She didn't need to. Because far away on the ground, her company's team had already released a short statement. "We are aware of the mistreatment of our CEO, Alicia Moore, on Flight 394. This incident will be addressed with full legal and corporate action. Racism, humiliation, and disrespect have no place in any airline or anywhere else." The post went viral. The airline didn't know it yet, but they were in serious trouble. And Alicia? She was just getting started. As soon as the flight landed, the passengers rushed to get up. Some were pulling out bags. Others were turning on phones, whispering about what they just witnessed. But a few couldn't stop staring at her. Alicia Moore, the calm black woman who had been forced to the back of the plane, and then walked back to first class like a queen returning to her throne. She didn't yell. She didn't argue. But something in her silence made people nervous. It was the kind of silence that spoke louder than words. She stepped off the plane with grace. Her steps were slow, powerful. She knew the world was watching now, because in less than 1 hour, her story had already reached millions. At the airport terminal, the two security officers, Ben and Craig, were laughing again. Ben tossed his gloves into the trash. "Can you believe that lady? Acting all fancy like she owns the place." Craig smirked. "Yeah, did you see her face when we told her to move? She was almost shaking." Ben laughed loudly, probably one of those wannabes, dressed nice to look rich. Then a voice interrupted. "You're both done." They turned around. A tall man in a black suit stood behind them. His ID tag said Corporate Security Director, and his face was serious. "What did you say?" Ben asked, confused. "You've been suspended," the man said. "Hand over your badges. You'll be escorted out of the building." Craig stepped back. "Wait, why? What did we do?" The man didn't flinch. "You harassed the CEO of Skycore Technologies. You removed her from first class without cause, and your conversation was recorded." Ben's smile disappeared. "You're lying," he said nervously. But he wasn't, because by now, the airline's headquarters had already been flooded with emails, messages, and calls. People were angry. People were sharing videos. People were tagging news channels. And one clip, recorded secretly by a passenger, showed Ben laughing while Alicia was being humiliated. The airline had no choice. They had to act. And fast. Meanwhile, in a black SUV outside the airport, Alicia sat in the back seat, scrolling through her phone. She wasn't angry. She was focused. Her team had already begun. Her company's legal advisors were drafting letters. Her public relations manager had called 3 major news networks, and her assistant was already arranging interviews. But Alicia had other plans too. She wasn't just going to expose a few bad employees. She wanted real change. She opened her email app and started writing a letter. The title was simple: "To all major airlines, this must stop." She talked about her experience. She talked about the humiliation. She talked about how women of color, especially successful ones, are often treated like they don't belong. And then she gave them a choice. Join her in building a new anti-discrimination policy across the airline industry, or risk losing millions. Back at the airport, Daniel, the man from row 7, stood with his phone still in his hand. His tweet had gone viral. Over 200,000 retweets. Journalists were calling him. "I just shared what I saw," he told them. "I couldn't stay silent." She didn't deserve that. Alicia's story had turned into a movement. People were sharing their own stories. Times they were judged, profiled, pushed aside. And all because one woman refused to stay silent. Across town, at airline headquarters, the CEO of the airline stood in his office, sweating. His phone buzzed nonstop. "Sir, we're trending for the wrong reasons," his assistant said. "Alicia Moore just posted an open letter. The media is calling. Sponsors are worried." The CEO dropped into his chair. "Get me her number. Now." But Alicia wasn't answering calls. She was preparing for a press conference. She stood backstage, calm and collected. A woman handed her a microphone. "You sure you want to do this?" her assistant asked. Alicia nodded. "I'm not doing this for revenge," she said. "I'm doing this so it doesn't happen to the next black woman sitting in first class." The curtain lifted. The cameras flashed. And Alicia Moore stepped into the spotlight, not just as a CEO, but as a voice for justice. The room was packed. Cameras lined the back wall. Reporters whispered to each other, not sure what to expect. News stations had cleared their schedules. Social media was buzzing with one question: what will Alicia Moore say next? Then, the curtain opened. Alicia stepped out slowly. She wore a navy blue suit, simple earrings, and no smile. She didn't need to dress loudly. Her silence was powerful enough. She stood behind the microphone and looked into the crowd. Everyone went quiet. The world was watching. "I was humiliated," she began. Her voice was calm, steady. "Not because I broke a rule, not because I was dangerous, but because someone saw the color of my skin and decided I didn't belong in first class." People leaned in. They didn't ask my name. They didn't check my ticket. They didn't know who I was. But they knew one thing. They didn't want me sitting there. She paused. Then she looked directly into the cameras. "What they didn't know is that I'm not just any passenger. I'm the CEO of a billion-dollar company. I help create jobs. I donate millions. I fly with this airline every month." She continued, her voice now stronger. "This isn't just about me. This is about the thousands of women, especially black women, who are treated like they don't belong in spaces they've earned." People in the room nodded. Some had tears in their eyes. "So today," she said, "I'm not just speaking for myself. I'm speaking for every girl who was told she was too loud, too confident, or too ambitious. I'm speaking for every black traveler who was questioned just for existing." Then came the moment no one expected. Alicia looked down at the papers in front of her. She held up a file. "This," she said, "is a document from one of your own former employees, an ex-security officer. It proves that profiling is not just accidental. It's part of unofficial training in some airports." Gasps filled the room. She flipped the pages. They were told to watch out for trouble. Guess how they described that trouble? People who wore hoodies, people who wore braids, people who spoke too loudly, people who were black. The room exploded. Reporters raised their hands, shouting questions. Phones vibrated nonstop. The live stream went wild. Over 3 million viewers in under 15 minutes. In airline headquarters, the CEO of the airline sat frozen in his chair, watching the live press conference on a giant screen. Sweat poured down his forehead. His PR manager whispered, "Sir, we need to issue a public apology. Now." He shook his head slowly. "This is bigger than just an apology." The door burst open. His legal advisor held a tablet. "Sir, Skycore Technologies just filed a discrimination lawsuit. And that leaked file. It's already trending worldwide. We're in trouble." Meanwhile, in a small house miles away, an old woman sat on her couch, tears in her eyes. Her name was Miriam James, Alicia's grandmother. She watched her granddaughter speak with power, pride, and truth. "I knew she'd change the world one day," Miriam whispered. Back at the press conference, Alicia ended her speech with one sentence. "You can kick me out of first class, but you can't stop me from flying higher than you ever imagined." The room erupted into applause. But Alicia didn't smile. She simply nodded, placed her notes on the podium, and walked away. Her message had been delivered. Her fight had just begun. That night, #AliciaSpeaks was trending in over 20 countries. Celebrities shared her speech. Activists called her a hero. People who never flew first class before suddenly believed they deserved more. But behind the scenes, Alicia's team had already taken the next step. They weren't just going to fight in court. They were going to uncover every hidden story the airline tried to bury. The internet was on fire. Alicia Moore's powerful speech had shaken the world. Her words were now printed in newspapers, shared by activists, and even quoted in classrooms. But behind all the attention, her team was working quietly on something even bigger. Because the leaked file Alicia shared, it was just the beginning. In Alicia's office, late at night, the lights were low. Everyone had gone home. except Alicia and her trusted tech manager, Ravi. "Are you sure you want to see this?" Ravi asked, looking nervous. Alicia nodded. "Show me." He opened a secure folder on his laptop. "These are internal security files from 4 other airports," Ravi explained. "Anonymous workers sent them to us after your speech went viral." Alicia leaned forward. Each file had the same disturbing pattern. Unwritten codes for flagging passengers, secret messages between officers mocking travelers, profiling guides with photos, most of them black or brown faces. Her stomach turned. "This isn't just one airport," she whispered. "It's everywhere." Ravi looked at her. "What do we do?" Alicia stood up slowly. "We bring them all down." The next morning, war begins. Alicia's lawyers filed a class action lawsuit. But this wasn't a simple complaint. It was a bombshell case, backed by proof, witnesses, and leaked messages. Her legal team gave a name to what was happening. Systemic sky profiling, a pattern of discrimination happening quietly across the skies. Every major news channel covered it. People came forward. Airport workers confessed. Victims spoke out. One man said he was pulled aside 15 times in 2 years. A woman shared how she was forced to remove her wig in front of strangers. Another revealed that she missed her mother's funeral because she was held for extra questioning. The truth was no longer hidden, and the airlines were panicking. Meanwhile, the fired security officer, Ben, was called to testify. Ben sat in a small interview room, his hands shaking. Alicia's legal team slid a file across the table. "We have your texts," the lawyer said. "We know about the profiling instructions. We know about your group chats mocking passengers." Ben looked pale. "I didn't make the rules," he said. "They trained us to do it. They told us to watch out for, certain types." "Black people?" the lawyer asked sharply. Ben said nothing, but his silence said everything. Alicia's voice grew louder. She appeared on talk shows. She met with government officials. She proposed a national policy, the Equal Skies Act, a law that would ban racial profiling, force retraining of airport staff, and punish discrimination with real consequences. The people supported her. The pressure was building. And the airlines, they finally broke. 1 month later, Alicia walked into a large conference room. Waiting for her were the CEOs of the top 4 airlines in the country. They looked uncomfortable, nervous, but they stood up when she entered. "We're ready to settle," one of them said. Alicia sat down quietly. "You don't just get to settle," she said calmly. "You're going to apologize, publicly, and you're going to change, or I'll keep going." There was a long silence. Then they nodded. Days later, history was made. On live television, the CEOs of 4 major airlines stood behind Alicia and signed the Equal Skies Pledge. They promised to end profiling practices, retrain all staff with anti-racism education, create anonymous complaint systems for passengers, partner with Alicia's team to make sure it was enforced. The crowd watching on TV cheered. People cried. Justice had won. And Alicia? She stood with her head high, not for fame, but for every passenger who'd been made to feel small. Back in first class. Weeks later, Alicia boarded another flight. The flight attendant smiled brightly. "Welcome back, Ms. Moore. Would you like a glass of sparkling water?" Alicia nodded with a smile. She looked around. No stares, no whispers, no judgment, just respect. She sat down, relaxed, and looked out the window. Because this time, she wasn't just flying first class. She had made the skies equal for everyone. Weeks had passed since Alicia Moore made history. The Equal Skies Act was already being discussed in Congress. Airports were retraining their staff. Security companies were rewriting their policies. But Alicia wasn't celebrating just yet, because late one evening, she received a letter. And what was written inside shook her to her core. The letter had no name, no address, just one line. She suffered for years because of you. Alicia sat still, staring at the paper. Who was it from? What did it mean? Her heart raced. She flipped the paper. Nothing else. No return address. No signature. Just those haunting words. The next morning, a package arrived. No one knew who delivered it. The label was smudged. Inside was a flash drive. Alicia called Ravi, her tech expert. I need you to open this. Carefully. Ravi plugged it in and waited. A single video file appeared. He clicked. And what played on the screen made their blood run cold. The video was shot in a dark room. A woman sat alone, wearing an airport uniform. She looked tired. Her voice was shaky. My name is Kendra Simmons. I used to work as airport security, under the same system Alicia exposed. She paused. Her eyes welled up with tears. I saw it all. I followed orders. I was told to stop black passengers more. I was told to treat them like threats. And I did it, because I was afraid to lose my job. She took a deep breath. But one day, I stopped a woman. She begged me to let her through. She said her daughter was in the hospital, dying. Kendra broke down. I delayed her for 40 minutes, just because her ID photo looked suspicious. She missed the flight, and her daughter passed away before she reached the hospital. Silence. Then her final words. That mother was your cousin, Alicia. Alicia froze. She couldn't speak. Her eyes filled with tears. She remembered now. It was her cousin Nia, the one who lost her child while rushing to the hospital. She had never spoken about the full story. She had disappeared from the public eye after that day. Alicia felt like the floor had fallen under her feet. She had been fighting for justice, but someone she loved had already been crushed by that same system. Later that night, Alicia visited Nia. She found her cousin sitting quietly on the porch, staring at the sky. Alicia sat beside her. No words, just silence. Finally, Nia spoke. You're doing good things, she said softly, but justice came too late for me. Alicia nodded, holding back tears. I know, she whispered. I should have listened back then. I didn't know what you went through. Nia looked at her. Now you do. Alicia reached for her hand. And for the first time in years, the two cousins sat together, side by side. No anger, just pain and healing. The next morning, a new mission. Alicia stood before her team. We thought we were done, she said. But we're not. She held up the flash drive. We exposed a broken system. Now it's time to hear the voices of those it hurt the most. She created a new project called Voices of the Silenced, a global platform where passengers and workers could share their stories, anonymously or openly. No judgment, no filters. In just 3 days, over 25,000 stories poured in. Some made people cry. Some made people furious. But all of them were real. One story changed everything again. A woman from a small town shared this. I was 15 when airport security laughed at me and called me a hood rat. I never told anyone. I'm 37 now. Today I cried for the first time, because Alicia's story reminded me that I wasn't crazy. I wasn't wrong. They were. Alicia read that and broke down in tears. Because for every headline she made, it was these silent scars that mattered most. And just when it felt like things were settling, a call came in. It was from the White House. A high-level official wanted to meet Alicia personally. Why? They didn't say. But the last sentence of the call sent a chill down her spine. There's something you need to know about what happened on that plane. Alicia Moore had done what few ever could. She took a moment of humiliation and turned it into a global movement. The Equal Skies Act was gaining support. People were finally speaking out. Airports were changing. Airlines were bending. But when the White House called and said, there's something you need to know about what happened on that plane, Alicia knew one thing. This fight wasn't over. Inside the White House, She entered a quiet, private room. No press, no cameras, just one senior advisor sitting behind a desk. He slid a sealed folder toward her. "There's something we didn't reveal earlier," he said. "We thought it was irrelevant. But after seeing how far you've taken this..." He paused. "You deserve to know." Alicia opened the folder. Inside were transcripts of internal communications from the very flight where she had been profiled. Her hands trembled as she read. The real reason they stopped her: security hadn't flagged her at the gate because of her ticket. It wasn't about her seat or her behavior. It was because someone had manually entered her name into a suspicious person database. Just an hour before she boarded, Alicia's eyes widened. "Who added my name?" she asked. The advisor looked uncomfortable. "We traced it back to a private request. It came from inside a corporate rival company, someone you had outbid for a major tech contract 3 weeks earlier." Alicia's heart dropped. "You mean it was planted?" He nodded. "Yes, and the system didn't question it. The flag triggered airport security, and everything else that happened was automatic." She wasn't just profiled. She was targeted. Alicia sat silently, processing everything. All this time, she thought it was about race. And it was, but it was also about power. A competitor had tried to destroy her reputation. They exploited a system built on racial bias, knowing it would do the dirty work for them. That system hadn't just failed. It had been weaponized. What would she do now? She could have stayed silent. She had already won in the public eye. Her story was famous. Her law was passing. Her company was growing. But Alicia wasn't built like that. She stood up, looked the advisor in the eye, and said, "Then we don't just fix airports. We fix the system that lets anyone be silenced. I'm not stopping. I'm just getting started." 1 week later, Alicia did the unthinkable. She stepped down as CEO of her company. The world was shocked. News outlets ran headlines. Why did she walk away? Is Alicia Moore giving up? But her answer came 2 days later, when she launched a brand new foundation, the Skywatch Initiative, a global organization to fight all digital profiling, racial, political, corporate. Its goal? Expose hidden blacklists, protect whistleblowers, make data systems transparent and fair. Alicia's voice reached farther than ever before. And now, she wasn't just speaking for herself. She was speaking for everyone who had ever been flagged, silenced, or stopped without cause. Months later, a familiar airport, a young black girl stood nervously in line at the gate. She clutched her backpack and looked around, anxious. A security officer approached her. But this time, he smiled. "Good morning, ma'am. No checks needed today. You're clear to go." The girl looked shocked. "Really?" The officer nodded. "Thanks to someone brave, someone who made sure things changed." She smiled and walked on. Above her, a large screen showed a message. "We honor Alicia Moore, who turned pain into power and made the skies safe for all." And far away, Alicia watched quietly. No press, no attention, just her and the sunset. She didn't need the applause, because somewhere, someone was flying without fear. And that was enough.